Hi. Hi, it's Aaron. It's been a little while, hasn't it? This is my vlog. This is a personal kind of spirituality journal. It's just my experience, my story. I'm not here to tell people what the truth is. I'm just here to talk about my journey, and I just do it in my own way. I take my time with these videos. This is kind of just me chilling out on camera, really. If you're here for a dopamine hit, you probably won't get it here. If you're here for intel, if you're here to be entertained, I don't know. Maybe move on. This is just for, I don't know. Like, this has always helped me to do this, and it's helped a few others. Just to be in community with a few people who roll around and check in with me every now and again. There's a few people I'm thinking of that I've met over the years that I don't really hear from anymore, or we've lost touch. Maybe I lost touch. Maybe it was more me than them. But it'd be nice to hear from you if you want to stay in if you want to get in contact with me. Yeah. So the title of this video is going to be quite revealing about what I'm going to talk about. The title of his video is going to be A Personal God, right? It's been a little phrase that's been on my mind, that's been with me for a while now. Back in May, I had quite a profound breakdown. Beginning of May, I really started to lose my shit in quite a big way. And the funny thing is about breakdowns is sometimes you don't really know it's happening. And this was one of those times. I mean, I was aware that it was happening, obviously, but there was a lack of, I don't want to say lack. I just didn't know what it meant or what was happening, really. I was scared. I was uncertain. I was, but it was just like, another one, I'm just, it's another one of these. I'm going back down again, and, in my spiritual practice, I'm like, okay, like, here we go. I need to, love myself through this. I need to do this, that, and the other, like all of this stuff. Right, I need to acknowledge my feelings. And I did all that, I do all that. I wouldn't say I'm a master or anything, but like I've been doing this for quite a few years now, and I'm getting better at holding myself through these experiences, and but this one was very different. This one was life-changing, and the reason was because of what responded. I want to say there was an intervention. Maybe intervention's a little bit of a strong word, but basically Christ came in, I mean, it was so profound and so unexpected, I wasn't looking for Jesus or anything, particularly. But what has been happening over the last sort of year or so was just a kind of a background interest in him a bit more than before, you know. Like, to me, he was, you know, I've been a Christian in my youth, and there were times when, as a child or a young teen, I'd kind of had experiences of him, you know, but into adulthood, I just kind of left Christianity behind, really, and kind of got pissed off with it all, and was not really an atheist at all, but just kind of like, well, I don't think God really gives a shit about me, you know, that kind of thing, you know, and I'm just going to carry on my merry way. I think it's quite a normal thing that we do. Wasn't particularly a rejection of God. It was more like, God has rejected me, so off I go. I'm just going to try and do my best, you know, and that's kind of where I was until around sort of 10-15 years ago, and I gradually started having experiences, spiritual experiences, mystical experiences, synchronicities and little miracles, and things were happening, and I couldn't deny that there was something bigger going on than the physical world, you know, that the spiritual world was real, you know, and I had my awakening in 2017, and I would say this year has been another awakening, another big one, but in a different way. And, you know, my interest in the story of Christ and the story of Jesus, and was kind of like outside of the Christian religion, and was mainly like, you know, sort of around the mysticism that he represented, you know, and maybe stories that aren't in the Bible, and viewpoints of people who weren't Christians, you know, those kind of things, you know, like, and my interest was sort of gradually rising, and I have once or twice over the years I have spoken with him, but it was very, it came and it went, and it passed, and he was just like, he's just another guide, you know, amongst a few that I was speaking with, and in 2022 I kind of had a thing with a realization about a teacher I was interacting with, a teacher I was following online, you know, and how there was sort of there was in his community, you know, I'm not directly accusing him. I'm not directly accusing him because I don't know, but I know enough, and I've spoken to people who are close to him, but I know enough to know that there was some cult-like behaviour happening around him. I don't know if it's fair to call him a cult leader or not. I don't know. But there was cult-like behaviour happening in his community. And to some degree, I realised that I was taking part in that. And that was back in 2022, and that was just a huge thing for me to realise that was happening. And I kind of walked away from spirituality at that point for a short time, and I gradually filtered back into it. And I began to see how, you know, so many of these non-dual teachings, self-realization teachings, new agey kind of things, how kind of, it's not that any of them are wrong in their own way, you know, there's truth in everything, really, in all these teachings. But there was kind of like there's kind of like this energy around many of these teachings, and a behavior around them in community, and how community often uses these teachings in unhealthy ways. And it's kind of really tricky. It's really tricky kind of I mean, spirituality is the spiritual growth, the spiritual journey is in some ways like walking on a knife edge, you know? Where, I don't know, like, it's really easy to get over involved in some teaching and see the truth in it and become invested in it and all of that stuff. And non-duality, self-realization, self-empowerment teachings, you know, all of those things have this kind of seductive quality to them because they are truthful, you know. I'm not saying any of them are wrong or lies or incorrect or anything like that, but there's more, you know. And we can get really invested in the idea that we have arrived, you know, the idea that we've made it, the idea that we've I don't know, become enlightened or whatever. We've reached a certain level, and I've witnessed so much of that in community, in various communities, you know, online. And you know, honestly, spiritual community scares the hell out of me, really, to be honest. Because of how it itself, even how nebulous it is, the spiritual community has become cult-like in itself, you know. There's a lot of culty behaviour, even though there's no singular leader, there's no cult leaders involved necessarily, you know. But it's easy for this culty behaviour to arise spontaneously, I think. And even if the teacher or the leader or whoever it might be is not encouraging it in any way, is innocent of it, you know. I mean, it's not hard to find. Just go into comment sections on certain videos or in communities, you know, you can see it everywhere. People putting each other up on pedestals and then tearing each other down. And it's not just spirituality, it's just everywhere, isn't it, right now? It's everywhere. But yeah, I'm getting distracted really, aren't I? But I'm just telling my story. You know, back in 2022 when that happened, it was a really big shock to my system. And it took a while to trust again. I basically stopped channeling as well at that point. Not because there was nothing wrong with what I was channeling at all. The groups I was channeling, which weren't many, there's just one or two groups, angelic groups, and you know, it doesn't matter. But like, I was just like, how do I really know? You know, like, I have my due diligence, you know. Like, everything has always been God first, you know, channeling God first. It's always God first, you know. It's always about being intentional and all of that stuff. And but even so, how do I really know? How do I really know that I'm being intentional enough? You know, all of that stuff. Really doubting everything. And so I just stopped. But then gradually, what came back in was my spirit family. So I was talking with my spirit family for a few years, and that was the identity, family. That was a word I was happy to use. That was a word they were happy to use. And so my spirit guides were just called family, my spirit family. And so it turns out that was Jesus. Like, I was going through my breakdown in May, and it was very profound. I was having lots of visions. I was having lots of realizations. It was very intense. There was lots of crying, lots of wailing, lots of purging. There was physical sickness as well. Stuff going on in my body that is still going on. And he just showed up. And it wasn't like, right, Aaron, you got to go do this, that, and the other now, and you got to... No, he was just there for me. He was just there, like a best friend, like a nurse. It was like he was a nurse by my bedside as I was going through all this stuff. As I was having all these realizations, like a really big kind of flashback of my life, or a life review, or whatever you want to call it, all these, all the shadow stuff, lots of shadow coming up, lots of shadow, deep stuff, stuff I could hardly look at. But with him there, I felt brave enough to look and acknowledge what was happening. And to hold myself, and to be held. And all through it, he was just like, hey, I'm just right here, And he was explaining his role, and he was saying, my role is just to help you to get to know God. That's all. To help you to listen to God, help you to get to know God. And of course, in the Christian tradition, he is God. He's an aspect of God, or he is God. I can never quite figure out what the Trinity means, because people seem to relate to it in Christianity in different ways. But, it's all semantics in the end. The Christ, God, Jesus, it doesn't matter really. I mean, I was saying stuff like that to him. I was saying, why is it you? Why isn't it like the Christ? Why isn't Christ here? Why is it Jesus? Why are you calling yourself Jesus to me? Because that's not part of my belief system, And he was just like shattering my belief system. It's like, do you think God can't do this? God can't show up as Jesus? And I was like, no, that's silly, isn't it, for me to think that? So this is where what I'm saying about the personal God, a personal God, why it's important, this phrase to me. This phrase, because in my spiritual journey, in your non-dual self-realization, whatever, blah blah, the theme, one of the themes has been how God has changed for me. That God no longer represented a personal God. from my childhood, the God of my childhood, the God of my early teens, how God went away, and that was a personal thing, and how in my spiritual practice, how I could recognize God, how I could meditate, and all of my stuff that I was doing, how I became good at meditating, getting to know God through meditation, through the present moment, through being present, through whatever, right? How I could get to know God that way, how I could come to recognize God that way. God as all things, God in everything. The God within, the God on the outside, and the God on the inside, that God is just here, inside or outside, regardless of labels or location, that God is. But there's these teachings, there's these ideas in non-dual self-realization, that God can't be personal, that you lose your personal God, that's part of the journey. And I've experienced that. But in May and now, it's like God was like, do you think I can't be personal for you? Like, do you think you can deny the truth that God can't be what you need? God can, that God is what you need God to be. And I needed a personal God then. I needed God to be personal. And I still do. I'm admitting that. It's like another realization. Oh, I do still need a personal God. We go through these phases, like these kind of ego trips or whatever, where I know God through meditation, and God is not personal. God is a feeling, God is love, God is whatever. And then God knocks on your door and says, no, hey, God is personal too. And by the way, my name's Jesus. I'm like, what? Like, I'm not saying, for anyone that's listening, I'm not saying you need to find Jesus. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that I'm becoming a Christian, although I did wonder. I was asking that. I was like, oh no, I'm not becoming a Christian, am I? Literally. But no. And allowing a personal God in has allowed me to become more grounded. And I don't really know what I want to talk about it all. It's just that's what I want to say. That's what I want to say. Is that there is, if you need a personal God, there is one there. And it doesn't matter how God shows up, It's just that God will show up. And what Jesus represents, who Jesus is absolutely profound. in my life, you know? Like I can't, it seems like May seems like a dream to me now. It seems like someone else went through all that. I feel like a completely different person. Things have changed for me in so many ways, and I can't even begin to describe them. And you know, to have this singular presence with me, you know, almost like 24/7, is incredible. And there have been days where he's gone away, you know, quote unquote, and I've suffered. You know, it's been like, but it's, you know, it's fine. Like, this is a spiritual journey, isn't it? We all know this once we've been on it for a while. Things change, you know. Even since the beginning of May, the relationship I have with him has changed. And I'm having to get used to that, you know, because he doesn't want to take my power away. But I'm, you know, my archetype or whatever, my trauma, my journey, my whatever, is to give my power away. That's what I'm trying to do. That's a pattern that I have. You know, the shadow side of being sensitive or an empath or whatever is that when someone comes along who you can recognize, you want to give your power away to them. I do. I mean, I don't want to, but there's this thing inside of me that tries, and I have to be vigilant with it, you know. I have to be careful. I've been caught out loads of times in my life by this, you know. And but he won't take it, you know. So it's like, you know, it's the feeling of being so safe is incredible. And I don't know. I think that's all I want to say, really. I'm not used to doing these. I don't know how many I will be doing. I just do them when I feel like doing them. I do have a was there anything else? Yeah. I mean, these are just, I mean, say it every time, don't I? These are just like massively intense times. I mean, regardless of what's happening in the world, regardless of what's happening in our lives, that's all intense as fuck. But what's happening inside of us, in our bodies, you know? Our feelings, you know, our healing crises. It's like we're all going through a big healing crisis, and no one's immune to it. I think there's a lot of people who aren't yet feeling it, you know? They're not yet conscious of it. It's not yet risen to the surface. And those of us who that has happened with, we're calling ourselves awakened. Awakened to what? You know? It's just a continuing journey. You have an awakening. And there's, like, for me, there was the singular awakening. There was one, yes. But then there were more. And then there was one this year. There was one in 2022. Big ones. We awaken in all different ways to different things, different aspects of this journey, of the self, of God, of whatever. We have these awakenings and then we continue. But we can go through all this and we can have God right by our side. And there's no channeling needed. Don't need to tune in. Like he's right here. And however we experience him is real. We all have our unique ways of tuning in. But it's almost like there's no tuning in required. We've gone through something really major this year already. Like, there's been a really massive shift. It's been huge. It's so big. How can we even describe it? How can we even try? I'm sure there's plenty of spiritual people out there who've got their own ideas. But I want to say, let's drop our ideas about what's happening. It's far bigger than we can possibly imagine. It's far bigger than we can guess. I think for me it's been a big humbling experience. It's been very humbling, very grounding. And it's okay, We're all doing this. There's no shame in having been humbled, There's no shame in that. We're all in this world that's telling us, all this bullshit, all this nonsense. There's no shame in having been invested in it. We're all on this journey together. I don't want to be shamed by people in the spiritual community anymore. Because I've had it over and over and over again. And maybe I've done that a bit as well. Pointing out each other's egos. All of that stuff. Or, I don't know. Oh, well, I get it for being trans, And I've judged people for being Christians. It's so silly. I've been watching a lot of Christian content since May. And I fucking love it. I fucking love it. And yeah, there's some really awful stuff out there. Really hateful. Really judgmental. Fundamentalism. Just utter nonsense. Wrapped up in a pretty bow with Christianity stamped on it. It's everywhere. The bullshit is everywhere. It's not that the New Age is bad. It's not that Christianity is bad. It's that the nonsense is throughout all of these structures we have, whether it's New Agey or whatever. I don't consider myself New Age. I don't know what to call it. It's just a bit of a hodgepodge, right, of stuff, including Christian teachings. But, I've been watching a lot of that, and I'm like, this is great, if I was a Christian, I would go to this church. I would go there. This pastor or whatever, he's really got it. He's teaching good stuff. You know, and we're all fucked up humans as well at the same time. We're all making mistakes. We're all stumbling along. So it's just taught me these last few weeks has just brought me, I feel like it's been like, it feels like a big course correction. But, you know, it's not because not that I was doing anything wrong, you know? It's not that I was doing anything wrong. It's just that it's just another step on the journey. And, you know, Jesus is right here. He's available if anyone wants to talk with him. He's right there. He's not going to deny anyone. I mean, that's what he's saying. He's here for humanity, all of humanity. All of us. No exceptions. No exceptions. None. There's nothing that we've done. There's nothing. We can deny him all we want. We can shout and scream at him. He doesn't mind. You know, he embodies the, you know, as far as spirit guides go, if you want to see him as a spirit guide, he's the perfect spirit guide, the most powerful spirit guide. You know, the story of Jesus, whether it's metaphorical or literal, you know, what's in the Bible or whatever, you know, there's no denying that given the amount of people on the planet that have a relationship with him, which is an enormous amount of people, that he is very much present on this planet. And yeah, there's probably a lot of people doing stupid things in his name. But, you know, it's just like, how can we deny that this story, this symbol, this man, this Christ, this spirit, whatever you want to call him, how can we deny that he's not here in some way? So, you know, the Christ has returned. And, you know, we've got some good stuff ahead of us. It's going to be challenging, though. But we can face anything. We can face anything. We have the support we need. We have the support we need. Okay. I don't think I'm going to try and be brave and actually publish this. And that's that, really. I do have a newsletter, which isn't really much of a thing. It's just like a notification, you know, of, you know, like, I've posted this video, you know. So if you subscribe to me, you don't need to really bother with the newsletter. Well, there's a few bits of writing on there, and maybe there will be in the future, I don't know. But I'll put a link with this video. Thanks for watching. Bye.